I asked my son for $120 to cover my arthritis meds, and my daughter-in-law smiled like a blade. You don't contribute anything but cost to this family. In that heartbeat, while my son laughed, I ended the $6,200 mortgage I'd been secretly paying, and the truth began to burn through every lie they'd built. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're watching from. And as you watch, don't just sit back, be part of the experience. If a moment grabs your attention, whether it's powerful, unexpected, or deeply moving, drop a comment with the timestamp of that scene and share your thoughts. Your reactions bring the story to life, and we love seeing which moments resonate with you the most. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, grab a coffee or tea, settle in, and let's begin. I wake to the thin winter light of Westview and the soft crackle of an Al Green record. Coffee gurgles in the percolator like a reliable friend. I move slower now. 68 will do that, but I still like the way the house answers when I flip switches, the quiet proof of a life spent chasing wires. On the porch, my late wife's azaleas hold their leaves, and the distant Marta hum threads the block. The budget clipboard sits on my kitchen table lined with pin marks and circled dates. Social Security and my union pension land like clockwork. The arithmetic is clean until the new prescription tips the balance. I ran the numbers 3 times. $120 a month isn't ruined, but it whispers of peace thinning. My doctor says it will calm the hands that stiffen before dawn. I decided I'd ask Darius to help a while, just until we see if the medicine earns its keep. I rehearse softly in the kitchen. Son, I need a hand for a few months. $120 a month. The words feel plain, respectful. Last week, the doctor said it should ease the stiffness. Give it time. The pharmacist said, keep the receipts, please. I answer the empty room. I can ask my boy. Family helps family. My son lives now in a sleeker world than mine. Darius and Monique pose beside a midtown townhome that turns to mirror. In person, it smells like candles and lemon oil. We still hug and trade small jokes, but our visits feel calendared, our calls shorter, as if we're guarding pieces of ourselves we can't name. The neighborhood holds me in place. I am the man folks call before they call a contractor. I keep a toolbox in the trunk and never mind a loose outlet or a porch light gone dim. On Sundays, a bell carries over rooftops and lands in my chest. Giving became habit when Darius was laid off after the pandemic. I paid a few months of his rent without ceremony. I slipped grocery cards into his jacket pocket, covered a dentist bill he pretended insurance had forgotten. Once, at the register when his card balked, I stepped forward as if I were only in a hurry. Help is a bridge, I told myself, not a road without end. Monique arranges the world into pictures. Linen napkins fan, a brass lighter clicks beside a candle labeled with a Paris street. She plates food like a magazine reader. I don't fault her for liking beauty. Jada and Malik are the warmest thing in my week. She sketches superheroes. He can take apart a radio. I tuck 2 red envelopes into my jacket, modest bills, and a card. Be curious, be kind. Keep each other honest. I practice the ask while the coffee cools. I don't want it to sound like a verdict, a grown man naming a need and trusting his family. The plan is Sunday dinner at their place. Roast turkey, macaroni and cheese, collards, and sweet tea beating the glasses. I will arrive early with a neighbor's pecan pie, set my hat on the same chair. Neighbor said, "Bring that pecan pie early, Lenny." Jada told me, "Grandpa, save me the corner piece." Midtown finds a way to glimmer at dusk. Their windows hold the city like a painting. On the mantel stands a framed photo from a beach I never visited with them. I notice a thicker throw, a bottle of wine. I am a father reading what is put in front of me. If there is a fault line, it runs quiet. Darius has been blinking away eye contact as if truth were a bright sun. Monique compliments me too earnestly, praise that clings. Still, I believe in what a table can do. Bread, salt, and the sound a chair makes when a person settles. Old medicines. I check the medicine bottle and the envelopes in my jacket. I lock the door and listen to the bolt answer. On the porch, I pause and look at the sky, leaning blue over the street. Families survive on honesty and small kindnesses. I step out, pocket my keys, and start the car. The record player spins down behind me, stitching soft notes into the quiet. By late afternoon, traffic knots along North Side Drive. I let the red signal fill the car and think about the first time Darius and I rewired a light. He was 9, steady with the wire nuts, proud of how the bulb answered when we restored power. "See," I told him then, "good work makes light." I still believe it. I want to believe the same thing about us. As I take the exit, I picture the table set just so, napkins folded, kids barreling toward the door. I choose the moment for the ask. After grace, after the first laughter, when the room feels full and soft. I will say the number plainly and leave it there like a spoon on a saucer. I don't expect trouble. I expect family. That is the kind of faith a man earns one day at a time until the day it is tested. Right now. Truly. The city wears a late Sunday gloss when I pull up to the curb, the midtown towers catching a thin sun like they've been polished for company. I'm early on purpose, the pecan pie warm on my back seat, a habit of mine when I want to notice things before the show begins. The lobby smells of lemon cleaner and ambition. In the elevator mirror, I straighten my collar, press a palm over the medicine bottle in my jacket, and tell myself this will be simple. Their door opens to a curated scene. Monique has staged the table like a magazine spread, linen napkins creased into fans, stemware aligned by some private grid, candles throwing citrus top notes that ride the steam of a buttered turkey. The macaroni is freckled with nutmeg, the collards send up an honest earth scent, and a playlist bumps softly from a Bluetooth speaker that can't stop skipping between songs, as if the machine can't decide who it wants to be. Jada and Malik orbit the table with small tasks, forks, folded cards, a stack of placemats carried like treasure. Darius hovers near the speaker, tapping his phone, eyes sliding past mine with practice. We trade the first exchanges the way people pass change. Compliments on the browning of the bird, a joke about the Hawks blowing fourth quarter leads, weather talk edging toward frost. Grace is said with the steady cadence of habit. For a time, the room warms like any other Sunday table. I let the small heat rise. It is my way to wait, to feel the pulse of the room before I add my own. I study the details while we pass bowls and settle. The new rug underfoot has geometric pride. A photo from a September beach trip leans on the mantel where last year's graduation picture once lived. The SUV key fob glints in a crystal dish that used to hold peppermints. Monique's laughter is bright, but the brightness stays in her mouth. Her eyes keep returning to the table runner that already lies flat, smoothing it as if hands could iron out air. Darius nods too fast at nothing in particular, the look of a man answering questions only he can hear. I press the medicine bottle in my jacket like a worry stone and remind myself of the number and the frame. $120 a month, temporary, a bridge until the doctor rethinks the plan. I choose my moment the way an electrician chooses a safe circuit, after the plates are cleared, when bellies are warm and the room is quieter. I imagine the sentence traveling across the table and settling on a saucer beside the pie. Dessert arrives with the gentle clink of plates, the children angle for corners of crust, and I take a modest slice that tastes of patience and syrup. The room has softened toward attentive. I lift my voice just enough to be heard and keep it level, one sentence, one number, one timeline. I'd appreciate a small hand for a few months, $120 each month while I'm on this new prescription. I let the words live on their own, no apology, no sermon, just the measurement of a need. Silence lands with an edge I can feel in my teeth. The speaker skips again, a hiccup of beat, a swallowed hook. Darius avoids my eyes with almost athletic skill. Monique sets her fork down with care and looks at me as if I have introduced a stain. You don't contribute anything but cost to this family. The sentence is clipped paper. For a beat, I am a man standing in a gust with his hat in his hand, watching it fly. Darius lets out a laugh that isn't a cough or a cover. It is agreement, naked and small. Jada looks at Malik the way siblings do when the world's volume changes without warning. My chest tightens with the first old reflex, to retreat, to make this easier for everyone by making myself smaller. But the years have taught me that shrinking is a loan you can never pay off. I steady my voice on the rail of fact. I place my fork down, fold my napkin, and speak what has been invisible by design. Then the mortgage payment I've been making on this townhome, $6,200 each month, ends today. It feels like setting a breaker. The power shifts. Darius chokes on his drink. Monique's face moves through expressions like weather, smug, baffled, a kind of pallor that looks like the room has tipped under her. She swivels toward him, the citrus candles smoldering between them. Mortgage? You told me the house was paid off. The playlist catches, fails forward, and starts a song in the wrong place. I keep to a narrow road of verifiable details. I tell them I have wired the payment directly to the lender since closing the same day each month. I say I chose privacy to protect their pride. I don't add adjectives. I don't use blame's vocabulary. The truth is enough work. Darius stares at his plate like it might hand him a script. It was temporary help, he mumbles. A loan. I was going to square it. His smile toward Monique is an index card in the rain it doesn't hold. Monique's cultivated calm splinters. She asks about down payment, about bonuses, about the story she has been posting to the world. There is a moment when she studies his face like she would a stranger in a lobby, searching for something familiar and finding it gone. The table remains beautiful, which only makes the crack in the floor stand out more. I gather my coat and my hat without theater. I hug the children, breathing in their shampoo and certainty. I thank Monique for dinner with the same courtesy I would offer any host, because courtesy belongs to me and I won't let anyone take it. I tell Darius to call me tomorrow. I don't repeat myself. The sentence sits between us like a closed door that is already locked. On the sidewalk, the December air is clean enough to sting. I feel the ache of being misseen by my own, and beneath that ache, a colder current I don't yet have a name for. If this lie is only the surface, I wonder what waits below. I drive home with the radio off, letting the last words I spoke and the long silence that followed ride with me in the passenger seat. 2 witnesses I did not invite but will not ignore. Morning hardens the air to brittle glass. When I open the front door, a thick manila envelope waits on the stoop, my name blocked in heavy ink like a warning label. I bring it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and open it with a butter knife. Paper rasp is loud enough to measure the room. I sort the contents into stacks the way I once sorted circuits. A for load, B for line, C for things that can kill you if you pretend they won't. Stack A is the color of trouble. It's the second mortgage on Darius and Monique's townhome, filed 6 weeks ago. My name sits on the page as cosigner, but the signature does not belong to my hand. The slant is stiff, the pressure wrong, the tail strokes clipped where mine curve. I set it to the left and breathe through my teeth. Stack B is a pile of credit card statements that do not live in my house. $52,000 winds through luxury decor, high-end dining, and electronics, but what catches the eye is a repeating charge to something called Blue Line Services. The descriptor feels like fog around a ship's bell. There, then gone, then there again. I circle each entry and write the dates on a legal pad. Stack C is the coldest stack. A life insurance policy on me, $400,000, owner and beneficiary listed as Darius Brooks. Issue date the same month my arthritis flared. I sit straighter without meaning to, like someone walked into the room I thought was locked. I photograph every page with timestamps and back up the files to the cloud. Fear announces itself as data points. My mouth dries out, my breath shortens, my hands tremble not from joints but from the kind of alarm that doesn't care how old you are. I mark the sensations so I'll remember the exact minute I stopped explaining away red flags and started naming risk. I call Monique, the number bright on the screen. Her voice tightens when I mention the envelope. She says she found the documents in Darius's locked desk drawer. A supervisor let her in under urgent family business. She made photocopies because the story at dinner ripped a seam she'd been pretending not to see. She suspected forged signatures and secret borrowing. She sounds like a person holding her breath underwater. I lay dates on the legal pad: the townhome closing, my first wire to the lender, the second mortgage filing, the first blue line charge, the insurance policy issue. The sequence aligns too neatly with family milestones and my medical flair. Opportunistic escalation is not poetry. It is a trail. I drive to the church and find Reverend Elaine Porter in the fellowship hall, the smell of coffee and floor wax steadying the room. I lay out the bones without blood. She listens with a face trained for storms and gives me the name of an elder law attorney, Nadine Holloway. Her hand on my shoulder is practical warmth. Asking for help isn't betrayal, she says. It's stewardship. I feel the word land like a brace. At my credit union, I ask for new cards, add two-factor authentication, and place a fraud alert with all three bureaus. The specialist pulls up a pattern of card-not-present purchases that look nothing like me. I file written disputes and request IP logs like I'm setting traps along a fence line. I call Darius. My mouth shapes his name like a prayer I no longer expect to be answered. He frames everything as family sharing, says the paperwork was streamlined, and adds that I must have forgotten agreeing. The tone carries entitlement polished into calm. I write down his exact words, the time stamp, the call length, the way my hand shook less when I focused on ink. Nadine Holloway's office smells like toner and new carpet. We build a file together, copies of the forged loan, the credit statements, the policy, my budget logs, last night's notes from dinner, and the long drive home. She outlines statutes on financial exploitation of elders and recommends I cease all voluntary transfers immediately. Georgia allows one-party consent to record my own conversations. She greenlights documentation and suggests boundaries I can say out loud without shaking. That night, I start a financial journal. Every dollar, every call, who said what, confirmation numbers, dates, tasks. Writing turns the room from echo to map. I set calendar reminders for follow-ups, disputes, and a fresh credit report in 30 days. I program my phone to auto-backup recordings, share my location with a neighbor, and rehearse a short script for any conversation with Darius. Brief, factual, no improvisation. I angle my kitchen chair to keep the wall clock in my sightline so time can pin speech to the board. Detective Vaughn Riley and Detective Selena Ortiz from the Financial Crimes Unit schedule an interview after I email the scanned documents. They mention similar complaints in our zip code. A consultant who coaxes elders to sign efficiency forms that open the door to siphons you don't notice until the bucket is dry. They sound tired in the way people sound after walking through rooms others try to pretend are empty. In the quiet, grief arrives like a late visitor. I am a father who once taught his boy to twist wire nuts until the connection held. I am also a man who can't let affection outrun safety. Love without boundaries is credit extended to a card that keeps failing. I pray not for a miracle, but for a backbone that doesn't bend in the wrong places. Sorting old receipts, I catch 2 small test charges at 2:13 a.m. to an online wallet with a wagering smell on it. Blue Line Wagers looks like Blue Line Services in a mask. I flag the line items for Detective Riley and circle them twice in my journal. Before bed, I draft letters to the bank and the lender, making it plain. No one is authorized to act on my behalf without notarized consent. I print 2 copies, sign in a hand only mine can reproduce, and leave the binder on the chair beside the bed. The house hums like a safe panel. Near midnight, my phone vibrates with an alert from a neighbor. Monique has accidentally gone live on a social account during an argument. For 60 seconds, the world hears Darius say, "Don't let the old man stop the transfers." Someone screen captures it. Comments bloom like weeds through a fence. What lived in our kitchen now lives in a thread. The public heat changes the math. Messages from Darius arrive in a stutter. Apology, flattery, threat, repeat. I log each one and feel the pattern harden. Exposure pushes fraudsters toward reckless escalation. The chapter I just wrote for myself, lawyer, bank, police, journal, will be tested next. I lay the pen down and stare at the ceiling until morning outlines itself and asks me to keep going. The Financial Crimes Unit sits behind a lobby that smells like copier toner and cold coffee. A clerk leads me into a windowless room where the hum of fluorescent light sounds like a long exhale. Detectives Vaughn Riley and Selena Ortiz open my binder and move through the tabs in a rhythm that tells me this is not their first broken family. Blue Line wagers, Blue Line services, second mortgage, policy issue date. They circle each item in red, then walk me through a controlled contact plan that keeps the facts clean and my body safer. I sign evidence consent forms and repeat back Georgia's one-party consent rule until it feels like a switch I know how to flip. Before I leave, Ortiz hands me a checklist colored the yellow of school buses. Emergency contacts, location sharing, post-meeting I'm safe texts. Outside, I sit in my car and add Reverend Elaine Porter and attorney Nadine Holloway to my phone's emergency circle. I toggle location sharing to a neighbor who lives 2 doors down and never misses a detail. The small square of control grows one tap at a time. Money is a kind of plumbing. If you don't shut off the valve, everything you build will rot. At the credit union, I cancel automatic transfers to Darius and Monique, set transaction alerts for any card-not-present charge, and request a temporary credit freeze. A banker notarizes my letter to the mortgage servicer. No third-party authorization without me present in person. The stamp lands with a dull thud that feels better than an apology. Nadine wants the next contact with Darius in a public place with familiar exits. I text him a short invitation to a barbecue joint off Ralph David Abernathy, nothing more than time and address. While I wait in the parking lot, I breathe in a 4-count box. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, until my hands stop trembling. I test the lapel recorder, speak the time, and tap the phone app to confirm the cloud auto backup. My financial journal sits in the glove box with an uncapped pen. The body listens when the tools are laid out straight. Darius arrives late, wearing cologne heavy enough to color the air. Panic rides under it the way heat rides asphalt. I keep the conversation plain. I state that I am aware of the second mortgage and the life insurance policy. I say all voluntary support has stopped and that any request should be directed in writing to my attorney. I do not accuse. I present verifiable points and let them sit like bolts in concrete. He leans into words I've already heard. Family sharing, streamlined paperwork, an older man who must have forgotten giving consent. I echo his phrases back to him so the recording carries the shape of his logic, not just mine. When he pivots to inheritance and my late wife's imagined wishes, I answer with one sentence about the will's language, leaving discretion to me. Boundaries are not arguments, they are guardrails. He asks for cash to hold things over a week. I stand, pay the check in cash to keep my card numbers out of this room, and step into daylight before instinct starts bargaining. In the car, I write a contemporaneous note. Location, duration, exact phrases, body cues, agitated, pupils dilated, hands jittering against the table. I upload both audio files and email Nadine a quick summary. Detectives text back a single instruction: expect escalation now that money has stopped moving. They attach a short memo tying Blue Line to a sports wagering wallet and a collector network that pushes debtors to monetize relatives. The phrase makes my teeth hurt. It is a day for bolts and latches. I change my door locks and add a peephole camera. I move the binder into a fireproof safe and leave a duplicate set with Nadine. The pill dispenser gets a new routine, a locking cap and a photo of each day's doses lined up like chess pieces. Dizziness last month might have been nothing. It might have been a whisper I refuse to hear. The camera sees what memory edits. Isolation is a thief's window. I show up for the church's weekday seniors lunch and let routine hold me in its wide hands. Reverend Porter introduces me quietly to 2 elders dealing with similar efficiency forms that turned into siphons. We exchange phone numbers and promise afternoon check-ins. In a corner, I write the bones of a plan on a napkin, visible, verifiable, accompanied. That evening, I sit at my kitchen table and draft a page titled, "What Love Is Not." Not unlimited cash, not silence, not paperwork I did not read. Not an apology that costs me my roof. I close the page with a line I can carry in a shirt pocket. Care has a spine. When I read it aloud, the room holds still like a workshop right before a good cut. Nadine sends drafts of a cease and desist letter to Darius, plus notices to lenders requesting signature specimen comparison. She files a preliminary incident number so any future report hits the system with less friction. Her email arrives with a subject line that feels like a doorstop under a door. Paper shields, first set. Darius's texts begin to ping in a predictable weather pattern, a warm front of apology, a gust of insistence that we can fix this internally, a drop in pressure that smells like threat. I reply with a single template, pasted without heat. Please direct all communication to my attorney, Nadine Holloway. I forward each message to the detectives. I keep read receipts off and my notifications on a low chime that answers without hijacking my pulse. Near midnight, a $1 test ping hits a card I forgot to freeze. Then another. The processor name carries the faint odor of wagering. I lock the card within a minute and add an early alarm for a call with Riley. The recorder and the journal sleep on the nightstand like two small sentries. The house hums its ordinary hum, but I hear a different frequency under it, a storm line forming outside the map. Before bed, I stand at the window and look down my block. Porch lights pool in front yards, a cat slips under a fence. Somewhere a television laughs at a canned joke. I think about the boy who once held a wire nut steady while I twisted until the connection held. I think about the man who sat across from me at lunch and reached for a story where a boundary should be. Between those two, there is still a line I will not let blur. Tomorrow will ask me to prove it again. I set the alarm, check the locks once more, and let the dark do its job without me. Late afternoon leans thin across my rug when the pounding starts. The doorbell never rings, fists do the talking. Through the peephole I catch Cologne, a twitching jaw, pupils blown wide. I keep the chain on and let the door open 2 inches. Paper slices through the gap, fresh power of attorney, clean edges, a signature line waiting for my ruin. He smells like adrenaline burned to the wick. I anchor to the one sentence I have practiced. All requests go through my attorney, no signatures without review. His mouth keeps moving while his eyes scan my living room like inventory. He pushes the pages higher, orders me to sign so he can stabilize the family. I can feel the recorder warm in my pocket, hear it take him down syllable by syllable while I hold the door with a knuckle and a prayer. He names a number that seems to pull heat from the room, $80,000, and calls the people owed impatient. My phone is in my other hand, a thumb sliding a pre-written ping to Detective Riley. Safe? The reply lands with a small vibration, a single dot that means they are nearby or close enough. The chain stays on. I repeat the sentence. He rattles the door, demands cash for a week, promises to undo forms with more forms. I refuse to move. When he sees that the chain and the sentence are not going to break, he steps back, mutters a blessing made of curses, and stumbles down the steps. Tires scream against January grit. The house absorbs the noise, then returns to its steady hum. I log the time, the words, the trembling in his hands. The day keeps going. The text from APD arrives that night like a valve opening. Detectives Riley and Ortiz pick him up at a warehouse poker room off I-20, a back table where fluorescent lights turn faces the color of paper. Phone seized, cash chips bagged, incident number assigned. I press the phone to my ear and listen to words I never expected to hear in my lifetime attached to my son's name. Fraud, elder exploitation, forgery. Relief and grief run straight at each other. And the collision leaves my chest buzzing. I write the details into the binder anyway because a record doesn't care about your pulse. Morning brings a briefing in a room that smells like toner and fatigue. Forensic crawls through Darius's phone and touches Monique's cloud backups. A sub-account in Bermuda holds $216,000, the numbers sitting there as calmly as weather. The descriptors match siphoned funds from two elders who recently filed complaints. Monique's public story, innocent spouse, blindsided, wilts under threads where she suggests targets and scripts. Screenshots settle into a folder labeled Evidence/Monique. Detective Ortiz taps the table gently and says they need her voice saying the quiet part. Nadine and I rehearse prompts in her office. Open questions, mirror their phrasing, let silence work. We do it until my body remembers where the commas go even if my mind forgets. She tapes a lapel mic to my shirt, pushes a phone across the desk already set to record to the cloud, and tucks a decoy pill organizer into my coat pocket. The cafe sits on a bright corner with windows like honest eyes. An unmarked car idles across the street, engine soft enough not to announce itself, presence firm enough to change the room. Monique arrives with manicure lines straight as rulers. Her voice carries sugar without weight. She lays out her pitch with care. Sign a power of attorney to prevent confusion. Let her streamline bills so nothing slips. I ask which accounts she has in mind, domestic first or the overseas safety fund too. The blink is small and honest. She corrects herself to contingency, then names the island and the bank as if she were selecting a wine. She mentions older donors who were supportive and says the money was a temporary float. I mirror back the line I need. She nods once, the smallest admission a person can make, and still call it composure. I touch the pill organizer in my pocket, ask about care facility forms with my name. She says Darius pushed, but adds it was the cleanest route to control disbursements. A slow vibration under the table tells me the detectives have enough. I keep her talking about target selection and scripts, widowed, isolated, trusts family, efficiency, bonus payoffs, tax optimization, until the room fills with verbs that do not need adjectives. The arrest is quiet, not television. Two officers approach, one speaks, the bracelets click. The cafe inhales as one body and then remembers its coffee. Monique looks past me, searching for a narrative, and finds none. I steady my breath and text Nadine 3 words, Monique in custody, then sit very still while the adrenaline shakes the table in tiny arcs my eyes can barely see. Back at APD, the day tilts again. Darius has posted bail within hours. The funds traced to Andre Ace Castell, a bookmaker whose name rides inside Blue Line's ledger like a watermark. Detective Riley lays the board flat. Darius started small, debts multiplied, and Ace Castell leveraged him into supplying elder victims to feed a collector network. The case steps out from my living room and into a room with longer shadows. My binder is still my binder, but it now feels like the front door to a ring. Anger wants speed. Grief wants a bed. The only thing I can trust is procedure. I call Reverend Porter, and she prays like a mechanic, short and practical, protection for the vulnerable, clarity for the next step, steel for my spine. Nadine files motions while we talk. A no-contact order, asset freeze requests for sub-accounts, notices to insurers to flag any policy activity on me. Paper shields are not armor, but they keep rain off the fuse box. I add a new page to the journal titled Players and Roles. Darius, debtor turned operator. Monique, facilitator. Ace Castell, bookmaker, network head. I draw a question mark next to Deacon Reggie Coleman, a man too comfortable around the word investors. The pen scratches through the quiet with a kind of purpose my body understands. Night drops fast. The porch camera catches a slow sedan rolling by without the nerve to stop. I jot the plate and send it to Riley. I set 2 alarms, check the fireproof safe, lay the recorder next to my glasses. The house hums. The binder breathes like a sleeping dog. I can feel the storm wall now, not a forecast, but a thing against my skin. Somewhere a parking garage waits with its concrete echoes and its bad lighting. I say the boundary sentence one more time in the dark so that my mouth remembers it when the room tries to make me forget. Then I let the dark take the watch for a few hours while I gather the strength to stand in tomorrow. If you're still watching and this choice hit hard, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on. The text arrives just after midnight, a hard blink of light in a dark room. The number is blocked. The rhythm of the words is not. He says I chose strangers over blood. He says I can still fix this if I do the right thing. The next message is a photo. Monique bound and gagged on a gray floor, her eyes wide, a caption that orders me to come alone to the parking garage behind the Civic Center or she disappears. My thumb does not answer him. It forwards the thread to Detectives Vaughn Riley and Selena Ortiz, then to my attorney, Nadine Holloway. Within a minute, Ortiz replies that APD has Monique in custody, time-stamped and logged. The image is almost certainly staged. She asks me to keep him talking while they trace. I type neutral words that do not promise anything and buy small units of time. Ortiz sends a second ping, a side-by-side comparison of the hostage photo and a production still from Monique's college theater page. The lighting, the tape, the angle of the wrist are identical. Metadata confirms the older date. We agree on a controlled meet. I will appear to go alone. The unit will surround the structure with eyes on every exit. A code phrase will tell them when to move in. I repeat it under my breath until it sounds like something I would say in a normal life. Nadine calls to rehearse limits. No cash, no signatures, no statements beyond truths already documented. She reminds me that Georgia allows one-party recording and tells me to start my devices early. I lay out a lapel recorder and a spare on the kitchen table, then program my phone so one button begins recording and sends a location ping. I put both recorders on charge while I sit still and wait for the battery icons to fill. The house hums like a panel that has been tightened by a careful hand. On the drive, I practice box breathing at red lights. I call Reverend Elaine Porter and ask her to pray short and practical. She does. I make my mouth hold the sentence I have chosen for the center of the night. I will not rewrite the truth for you. Put it down and walk toward my voice. I say it again until it fits the shape of my teeth. Level 3 of the garage smells like oil and cold concrete. The northeast corner holds more shadow than it has any right to own. The recorder hums against my sternum, a tiny machine heartbeat. My shoes make hollow sounds that tell me exactly where I am and how far any echo can travel. He steps from behind a pillar looking thinner than last week, the skin over his cheekbones tight, the eyes sandpapered. His jacket bulges at the pocket. The air between us has the feel of a wire pulled too tight. He opens with the demand I expected. Call Detective Riley and retract everything. He stacks paper in his hands and says he can make this whole thing go away if I help. He says a name like Weather no one can change, Ace Castell. He shakes the folder in the same rhythm a man shakes dice, a gambler begging the table to forget arithmetic. He talks about people who will not wait. He wants me to believe time is his to sell me for a price. I show him my screen. The APD custody timestamp for Monique sits above Ortiz's metadata capture of the theater still. I speak slowly so the recorder hears every consonant. There is no kidnapping, only a lie you hoped I would be too scared to test. That sentence does not need volume. It needs gravity. I let it fall between us and stay where I am. He pulls the bulge from his pocket and for a second, my body thinks it is a gun. It is not. It is a heavy, unsigned power of attorney smeared with greasy fingerprints. A cheap folding knife is clipped to its edge like punctuation that wants to be dramatic and cannot quite get there. The blade never fully opens. His hand shakes. He holds paper like a man holding a raft he knows will not float. I do not move closer. I give him 2 paths with as few syllables as I can. Drop both and walk or add charges you cannot bury. I keep my voice inside a narrow channel of sentences that stand up straight. I will not lie for you. I will not sign. I will stand here while you choose. I mark time aloud now and then, an anchor for the recording and a metronome for my own pulse. He tries to sell me a minute, then a promise, then a threat shrunk down to a whisper. The whisper is the weakest of the three. The crack shows in his posture before I hear it in his voice. His shoulders fold and the words spill with none of their earlier spin. He has not slept. The debt clock eats through the night. The collector network moves faster than he can run. He says he ruined everything. I answer one sentence that is not for the tape so much as for myself. You can stop ruining more. We breathe in the cold like medicine. The drop is loud for something so small. Metal hits concrete. Pages lift and settle. He steps back with his palms out, fingers splayed as if he has just remembered they belong to him. I say the code phrase, flat and ordinary, a thing a father might say at the end of a visit. I think it's time to go home. The phrase travels through the air to ears and mics I cannot see. A PD enters without theater. Commands are simple. Cuffs click. He does not fight. My vision narrows and then widens as the adrenaline lets go. I look down at my shoes until the floor stops trying to tilt under them. I check the recorder light and watch the file finish its upload. When Ortiz asks if I am steady, I nod and find that the nod is true. In the unmarked car, we play back the clean beats, the fake photo reveal, the refusal to recant, the drop. Riley warns me that with Ace Castell exposed, there will be noise, lawyers' pressure, maybe messages from Deacon Reggie Coleman reframing his introductions as church stewardship. Nadine files her addendum before I reach my house. Stage threat texts attached to evidence, the court notified that coercion was attempted post-bail, a request to revoke bail based on violation signals. Alone at my table, I notice my hand steadying by degrees. I write a line under the day's entry that is not a victory lap and not an apology. Love told the truth and stayed. The unsigned POA goes into a plastic sleeve labeled Recovered. Garage, then into the binder like a thorn I chose not to pull, so I will remember where it pierced. The decision tonight fixes the arc. I chose law and boundary over bargaining and secrets. What comes next will be consequence measured in public light. Layered charges, an organized ring dragged into names and dates, a long road where truth has to keep showing up every morning like work. I set the binder down and listen to the house breathe. The dark feels less like a threat and more like a shift change. Tomorrow we'll ask again. I have an answer now that does not move. 6 months redraw a man's edges. I sit beneath the carved seal of Fulton County Superior Court, wood panels polished to a sermon sheen, air stitched with lemon oil and paper dust. The pew creaks like a church bench every time someone breathes too honestly. The calendar board reads, State versus D. Brooks et al. To my left, elders from our neighborhood hold handbags on their knees like anchors. Reporters lean on legal pads, hunting for angles. I open my financial journal to a fresh tab and write the date as if dates can hold back weather. Darius enters in a county-issue suit that tries to be a promise. Shackles whisper when he sits. Monique follows, wrists quiet, chin lifted to a point above everyone's head. A deputy straightens the microphone. When the judge takes the bench, the room remembers posture. Counts are read in a cadence that strips adjectives: elder financial exploitation, forgery, conspiracy, enhancements for vulnerable victims. The law is a metronome, cold, even, patient. Sentencing lands in numbers that will name our next years. Darius. 8 years, restitution and mandatory gambling treatment. Monique. 4.5 for facilitation and laundering. Deacon Reggie Coleman receives a suspended sentence with probation, fines, and a lifetime bar from handling church funds. I feel my shoulders lower from where they have lived under my ears. Relief arrives braided to grief. The boy I taught to twist wire nuts is not the man listening to a term. I write one line on today's page. Justice is protection first, lesson second. When the clerk calls for victim impact statements, my knees do not knock. I stand and steady both palms on a paper I no longer need. I say that money mattered, but safety and trust cost more, that boundaries kept others safe, that I support the sentence not out of revenge, but prevention. I speak Jada and Malik's names softly and ask the court to remember children live with the echo of adult choices. The judge nods once, the kind of nod that means the words made it past the wood. Back in the gallery, Mrs. Alvarez squeezes my arm until bone meets bone, the language of women who have outlived storms. Mr. Whitaker gives me a single nod he's been saving. Detectives Vaughn Riley and Selena Ortiz allow themselves a working smile, the kind that respects unfinished maps. There is more ring work to do, but today is a gate you pass through only once. The clerk reads a note on custody that fits on one line and will fill whole calendars. Jada, 12, and Malik, 10, are placed with their maternal aunt. The court approves supervised visits for me. I make a private vow to be a stable Saturday. Grilled cheese, homework table, normalcy without questions, they are not built to carry. Predictable love is its own shelter. The prosecutor explains an asset recovery from a Bermuda subaccount. Dollars traced become dollars rerouted into a restitution pool for victims. I am given a schedule for review hearings and a contact for updates. My mortgage is secure, fraudulent lines are closed, the map of our money has fewer trapdoors. Numbers cannot apologize, but they can be reassigned to better work. Outside the courtroom, a local TV producer follows with soft shoes and sharp eyes. She wants a live hit, a headline that chooses between forgive and never. I decline the spectacle and offer a resource list instead. Elder law hotlines, how to place a credit freeze, a sample limited power of attorney template with guardrails. To my surprise, she agrees to air the list. If a camera must point at something, let it point at tools. In the hallway, Nadine Holloway walks me through what comes next. Timelines for civil claims if we pursue them, victims' rights notifications, and how federal action might widen if Andre Ace Castell's case ripens. She reminds me to keep the no-contact order bright and to forward any outreach from friends of the family looking to sand down history. Paper shields, she says, are only as strong as the hands that keep them oiled. That night, a letter with a new return address waits on my kitchen table. Darius writes from intake. The page is thinner on excuses. He notes enrollment in gambling treatment and a vocational OH. VAC certificate track. No miracle lives in the ink, but accountability does. I slide the letter into a new tab labeled Darius, Accountability, a place where pages will be earned. The next week, Reverend Elaine Porter and I unlock the fellowship hall for the first session of Hands Off Our Elders. A banker joins us with a portable notary seal. A young IT tech sets up two-factor authentication on jittery flip phones. A social worker translates hard mail into human speech. We read statements aloud. We close stray accounts. We build a habit of calling the bank with the speaker on and the neighbor present. The sound of people learning the shape of their own consent fills the room like music. At home, I keep the perimeter that held. The lockbox routine stays. I photograph each week's pill layout and keep monthly credit pulls recurring. The porch camera blinks a small green eye. Duplicate binders sit at Nadine's office and in my safe. I reframe help in 3 words that fit on a post-it. Visible, verifiable, accompanied. My first supervised visit is a pocket of ordinary that feels like grace. Grilled cheese hisses in the pan, tomato soup breathes steam. A science kit spills blue foam across my table like the day cannot help itself. Jada wants to talk comics. Malik wants to fix a squeak in the back door. We do not discuss their parents. We balance equations and oil hinges. The room stays warm without effort. A week later, a radio host tapes a 10-minute segment with me. We keep it practical. Red flags like pressure around power of attorney, efficiency forms that reroute control, sudden bonuses that explain the inexplicable. Then 10 minutes on what to do next. Freeze, two-factor, dispute in writing, police report number, elder law consult. Phone lines light before the outro lands. Elders call. Adult children call. The city sounds like it is learning a new word, enough. When the house quiets, I sit at the kitchen table and write a page titled, What Stayed? The house, the porch plants, the Saturday visits, the backbone. I place a small river stone on the binder, not as a weight I must carry, but as a reminder that some things can anchor without sinking you. Evening pulls itself across the living room. The city hums far off. Consequences are now written, not looming. Community work has a shape. Family routines begin to mend. What comes next is the work of building solutions, policies, clinics, templates, and a life that does not flinch when the phone rings. The fellowship hall smells like coffee and floor wax, the kind of ordinary that steadies a man. We spread drafts across 2 folding tables, Nadine Holloway's legal language in clean serif type, Reverend Elaine Porter's notes in looping blue ink, my penciled margins that read like a retired electrician's checklist. The Family Boundary Handbook is almost a book you can hold now, limited power of attorney templates with guardrails, a 1-page red flag sheet that names pressure, secrecy, efficiency forms, and surprise bonuses, a 3-step protocol, document, freeze, dispute, report. We argue commas and boldface until the pages feel less like advice and more like tools. When the copier thrums to life, it sounds like a small engine turning over after a winter of waiting. Our pilot clinic opens with folding chairs, a card table of pens, and a whiteboard that reads, Hands off our elders. We skip speeches. Instead, volunteers sit elbow to elbow with neighbors. A banker walks folks through credit freezes, dialing each bureau on speaker and letting elders hear their consent in their own voices. A young IT tech sets up 2-factor authentication on phones that still carry the weight of old numbers, patient with fingers that tremble. A social worker helps people read statements out loud, translating jargon into this is yours and this is not. We log outcomes like a field team. Freezes placed, alerts enabled, suspicious debits disputed, limited POAS notarized. The room fills with the sound of pins scratching and people learning what their signatures mean. I script 3 porch videos on my phone while the evening light is kind. In the first, I say that no is a complete sentence and does not require a story to prop it up. In the second, I hold up 2 forms, limited power of attorney versus a blanket one, and explain why guardrails keep love from being turned into a lever. In the third, I list the first 24 hours after a red flag. Document the thing, freeze and dispute, report to police and an elder law attorney. Comments arrive like weather, mostly warm with a few hecklers accusing me of airing dirty laundry. I pin resources over sentiment. The camera catches my porch azaleas and the blooms look like listeners. Routine becomes a kind of shield. I keep the weekday seniors' lunch, add a check-in tree to the bulletin board. Every elder texts 2 others after a bank visit or a big piece of mail. When one person forgets, another knocks on a door with pound cake and a question. Fraudsters love isolation. We make a neighborhood of witnesses. My knees ask for honesty, and I finally give them some. At physical therapy, I learn patient, disciplined movements that feel like wiring a switch the right way after years of jiggling it. I pair each rep with a boundary phrase so the body and mouth train together, not without review. Put it in writing. Bring a witness. The pain doesn't vanish, but it is governed now, and governable pain is a relief you can sleep on. Saturdays settle into a groove like a favorite record. Jada and Malik arrive with comics and worksheets, the door swing announcing a particular kind of joy. I make grilled cheese, stir tomato soup, and set a stool by the sink for a science kit that overflows blue foam across my counter as if delight has a timetable. We oil a squeaky hinge on the back door and turn it into an algebra lesson about angles and arcs. I do not narrate their parents' cases. I narrate competence, how to read instructions, where the Phillips head lives, why a clean rag matters. The financial perimeter holds because I keep holding it. The lockbox routine sits on the same shelf every morning. I photograph a week's worth of pills as a single spread and slide the image into a folder called Doses. Monthly credit pulls live on the calendar and make their chime. I close expired autopays, rotate strong passwords through a notebook in my safe, and audit beneficiary lines with Nadine Present so my future self won't have to guess what my past self meant. A small charity answers my doctor's letter with a partial grant for the arthritis medicine. Relief lands where secrecy used to. The hands that stiffened before dawn now wake like they remember their old jobs. Sleep deepens and holds. It does not escape me that this help asked for paperwork instead of silence. I log the grant in my journal with a gratitude that doesn't ask for interest. Detectives Vaughn Riley and Selena Ortiz brief me once a week on the broader case. I stay in my lane, respond to subpoenas on time, keep my records current, decline side conversations. The no-contact order remains bright. When messages come from friends of the family, I forward them and do not answer. A witness's job is to show up with the truth and a steady spine. Anything after that is theater. I write to Monique in a tone that will stand in court. I tell her I will testify truthfully. If she demonstrates restitution and service, I will note that when asked. No bargains, no softening, just a door named for what it is. Reverend Porter and I draft a financial transparency policy for the church that reads like a lock on a gate. Dual signatures, rotating audits, conflict of interest disclosures, and a trained lay committee. Deacon Reggie Coleman is barred permanently from handling funds. We post the policy where everyone can see it and add a QR code that links to an explanation a teenager could understand. 6 weeks in, we measure the turn. 41 credit freezes, 29 two-factor setups, 17 fraudulent charges disputed and reversed, 9 limited POAS notarized with guardrails. We post anonymized tallies and remind the room that numbers are not bragging, they are coordination. Calls come in from other congregations asking for our handbook. We send PDFs and an invitation to come sit with us at the folding tables. At home, shame unknots by degrees. The house hums like a well-balanced panel. I journal fewer pages because there's less to wring out of the day. I reframe help on a post-it above my desk, visible, verifiable, accompanied. Generosity gets an ID card and a chaperone. It feels less like policing love and more like telling it the truth. Neighborhood ripples reach back to us. 2 elders cancel bonus meetings with smooth talkers after seeing the porch videos. A grandson brings his grandmother to reverse a rushed POA, his hand on her elbow like he's learned where to put it. Small course corrections keep people from driving off larger cliffs. We clap in the fellowship hall without confetti, then sit back down to the next form. By month's end, the handbook is printed and the clinics run like a train you can set your watch to. My Saturdays are a rhythm. The phone rings, and I don't flinch. The arc of this season shows itself. A life restructured, a community equipped, a promise I can say in a sentence that still fits my mouth. Truth will keep showing up in daylight, with witnesses and paperwork until it becomes habit. Morning light smooths the kitchen into something I recognize. The percolator hums. My knees negotiate without argument. On the porch, azaleas hold their shape after a trim Jada supervised last weekend. The mail brings 3 envelopes, a restitution update with the first deposit posted, a stack of clinic sign-ups clipped together, and a postcard covered in marker stars. Jada and Malik announcing their science fair, promising non-exploding foam this time. I pin it to the fridge like a small flag. I open the restitution letter with a butter knife the way I have opened bad news before, out of habit more than fear. Numbers sit where they should. Funds recovered from a sub-account, a first tranche disbursed, my mortgage ledger showing 0 past due. I check all 3 credit bureaus, clean, 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 then file confirmations under a new binder tab labeled Recovery. The next audit date goes into the calendar with a calm chime. Paperwork, for once, behaves. Recognition arrives without spectacle. A city council aide emails a modest citation for hands off our elders. The neighborhood paper runs a short column about our family boundary handbook. I accept with thanks and send back clinic hours, hotline numbers, and a link to the red flag sheet. If attention has to land somewhere, let it land on tools. Fame is a poor ledger, usefulness accrues interest. Boundaries still get tested. A distant cousin messages on behalf of the family to suggest a softer letter to the court. I forward the note to Nadine Holloway, log it under noise, and go for a walk. Compassion without capitulation has become a muscle. It works better when used often, but not flamboyantly. I remind myself, visible, verifiable, accompanied. My feet keep time with the words as the block goes by. The visit that matters is simpler. Child Services approves an unsupervised afternoon. Jada wears a ribbon from the science fair. Malik heads straight to the back door, points at a loose latch, and fetches a screwdriver without ceremony. We plant basil in a long box and scratch J&M Garden into a wooden stake. Over sandwiches, the house sounds like a friendly radio. No station fighting to be heard, just a steady song of ordinary. A letter from intake bears my son's narrow hand. Darius writes specifics, sessions in gambling recovery, assignment to a vocational HVAC track, an apology without bargaining, and a request for pages from a manual. I photocopy the chapters, tuck them into a large envelope, and add one line on a yellow slip. Keep doing the work. The boundaries stand. Accountability is a small door. I can hold it open without moving the frame. News arrives about Monique from the Department of Corrections. She enrolled in a prison accounting literacy program and has begun small restitution deposits. I prepare a neutral statement for any review board. Facts only, noting actions taken. No discounts, no poison. The court can use truth without my temperature on it. At church, reforms become policy. Dual signatures, rotating audits, conflict disclosures, a trained lay finance committee. Deacon Reggie Coleman steps down with a public nod. I shake his hand and leave it there. Ledger lines work best when they end where they should. The congregation posts our rules beside the hymn numbers, a weekly reminder that faith and oversight share a pew. Clinic metrics prove momentum. 63 credit freezes, 47 two-factor setups, 26 disputes reversed. 14 limited POAS notarized. We add a traveling table for homebound elders and ask a high school senior to build a QR intake form. Calls from other congregations arrive with questions and gratitude. We send PDFs and an invitation to sit at our folding tables where pens and patience do their slow, steady work. Late one night, an unknown number leaves a clarification about Darius's case. I let it go to voicemail, forward it to Nadine and APD, and sleep anyway. In the morning, I write a page titled, What Survived? The House, My Craft, The Church Bell, Saturdays with J&M, The Sentence That Carries Me, Visible, Verifiable, Accompanied. Loss sits beside the list without stealing ink. On the porch at dusk, basil sprigs lean toward the last light, azaleas mind their edges. I pour 2 glasses of sweet tea for when the kids arrive. The phone rings with a clinic question and my body does not brace. The story closes not with applause, but with a habit of truth that holds. Evening settles warm on the porch. Azaleas trim tight in the basil in the J&M box pushing small, brave leaves. My toolbox sits closed on the step like a dog at rest. Beside the sweet tea lies a copy of the Family Boundary Handbook, pages creased in the right places. I have been telling this story for months now. Betrayal answered by boundary, boundary building a bridge to accountability, accountability widening into repair. What matters at the end is not the spectacle, but the structure that stayed. I used to think family meant paying quietly and hoping tomorrow behaved. That kind of hope collects interest you do not see until the bill arrives. I know better. Family is not a debit line. It is the practice of consent and respect made visible. My new rule travels in 3 sentences I can always say, not without review. Put it in writing. Bring a witness. They are not slogans, they are anchors. Each carries a scene that taught it to me. I do not erase Darius or Monique to keep my page clean. He writes from intake about gambling treatment and an HVAC class. She enrolled in an accounting literacy program and began small deposits toward restitution. I answer with facts and boundaries. Forgiveness, if I am using that word honestly, is discipline. Truth kept, restitution recorded, hope tied to verified change. No contact holds. Doors stay labeled. Older folks ask me for the shorthand, so I give it plain. Pressure to sign a power of attorney, efficiency forms you never asked for, surprise bonuses, and secrecy. Those are red flags. The exit is a habit. Document, freeze and dispute in writing, report to police and an elder law attorney. Take someone with you. Asking for help is stewardship, not betrayal. Pride doesn't pay bills, process does. Our clinics work because hands do the work while voices stay calm. We keep banking calls on speaker so consent can be heard. We set up two-factor together, notarize limited POAs with guardrails, and post tally so progress is public. The church fixed its books, dual signatures, audits that rotate, conflicts disclosed, a trained lay committee. Deacon Reggie stepped back. Other congregations copied our checklist. The porch videos did their small job. A grandson reversed a rushed POA, and 2 elders canceled bonus meetings that were nothing but hooks. Sharing specifics beats warning people to be careful. Tools beat drama. My trade still teaches me how to speak. Good work makes light. Taped wires are not a safe circuit, only a secret about to burn. The boundary is a breaker. When danger rose, I flipped it, and the house did not catch fire. I keep my tools visible. A journal with days you can audit, a recorder that backs up to the cloud, a binder in a safe, and lists that anyone can read without asking me to translate my own life. Jada's blue ribbon hangs from a tack above the sink. Malik's hinge swings clean. Competence and kindness are the inheritance I can hand them without lawyers. Saturdays stay predictable. Grilled cheese, algebra, oil on a rag, a door that answers the first push. They learn that love is not hush. Love has a spine and a ledger. Extended family still tries to angle for a softer statement. My answer never changes. Counsel handles contact. I provide facts. There is no private reversal. Compassion is a door that opens outward so people can walk through when they're ready. It isn't a hole you fall through to keep someone company. Reporters still call. I point them to the handbook, the hotline, the clinic hours. I remain on standby as a witness in Ace Costell's case. Logs current, voice steady. I do not owe an audience my grief. I owe my neighbors a map. The body follows policy. The grant keeps my arthritis medicine coming. PT sits beside those 3 boundary sentences until breath and posture match. Pill photos, monthly credit pulls, lockbox, peephole camera, small rituals that add up to a house that doesn't flinch. If I could speak to the man I was the night before dinner, I would tell him, keep receipts, ask early, say no kindly, protect your signature. If you feel yourself shrinking to keep peace, you are paying interest on someone else's debt. Then I would hand him the checklist we taped to the fellowship hall door. Pause. Don't sign today. Call together. Speakerphone with a witness. Limit authority. Use a guarded, expiring power of attorney. Freeze and dispute in writing. Report to police and elder law. Follow up. Calendar the next check. Sun drops soft across the porch. The door I fix swings true. The basil leans toward a new week. The phone rings with a clinic question and I answer without bracing. The story does not end with a twist. It ends with a habit of truth that holds and can be taught. In the end, what endures isn't noise or scandal, but the quiet architecture of a life rebuilt. Boundaries become a kind of love that refuses to lie. Consent becomes the grammar of every promise. Trust is not a feeling you chase, it is a ledger you balance, one clear action at a time. We learn that help works best when it is visible, verifiable, and accompanied. That repair is ordinary and patient. Paperwork turns from burden into shield, small rituals checking statements, asking for a witness, saying no kindly. Steady the hand. Truth practiced daily becomes a habit, and habits become shelter. If this story leaves anything behind, let it be courage to speak plainly, wisdom to protect names and signatures, and compassion that opens doors without erasing consequences. Thank you for watching and for caring about stories that choose light over secrecy. Tell us what resonated with you in the comments, share it with someone who might need it, and if you'd like more, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what